Welcome to this explainer on consumer protection and you. Let's get right into it and uncover how, as everyday consumers, we actually hold the ultimate power in the free market. Now, I know you might not always feel like you have the upper hand when you're out there shopping or dealing with massive faceless corporations, but the legal framework protecting you, it's a whole lot stronger than you might think. So we're going to break down exactly what those protections are, where they come from, and most importantly, how you can actually use them.
Section 1, the failed ATM transaction.
To really grasp the real-world impact of your consumer rights, let's start with a situation pretty much all of us can relate to. Picture this. You walk up to an ATM, you put your card in, you punch in all your details, and then nothing. Just that dreaded error message saying cash isn't available. It's incredibly frustrating, right? Well, what you might not realize is that this everyday, relatable annoyance is actually a direct violation of your rights as a consumer.
Seriously, back in 2017, in a landmark case in Raipur, a frustrated person didn't just sigh and walk away from an empty ATM. They actually took photos and video evidence to prove the bank failed to provide cash. The bank, of course, tried to wiggle out of it. They argued that because ATMs run on internet connectivity, the user wasn't technically a bank client at that exact split second. Crazy, right? But the Consumer Forum completely rejected those excuses, ruling that failing to provide ATM services is absolutely a direct reduction in service. And here is the best part, the result. The forum slapped that bank with a 2,500 rupee fine for a deficiency in service. That was broken down into 1,500 rupees for mental harassment and 1,000 for legal expenses. This literally proves that speaking up and actually knowing your rights has a real quantifiable value.
Section 2, let the seller beware. That ATM ruling perfectly captures a massive historical shift in how our market operates today. See, we've moved totally away from the old idea of caveat emptor, which is just fancy Latin for let the buyer beware, where you, the buyer, took on all the risk. Today, we are firmly in the era of caveat venditor, which means let the seller beware. Sellers and service providers have to be incredibly careful to deliver exactly what they promise, or they're going to face the consequences. This brings us to a core concept from the source material. Think of it this way. You are the king of the free market economy. Your choices dictate which businesses succeed and which ones fail, and the legal framework exists basically to protect your throne. Section 3. Why we need protection. But let's be real, even a king needs guards, because the modern market is an absolute minefield. Let's quickly run through this staggering number of traps we face every single day. From businesses secretly adding cheap fillers to our food to selling totally counterfeit goods, we're constantly dodging risks. You might run into malfunctioning waits at a shop that shortchange you, artificial shortages that hike up prices, or just straight up being overcharged above the maximum retail price. Oh, and don't even get me started on misleading advertisements that claim a product does something it definitely doesn't. And this is exactly why these consumer protections are so absolutely crucial. Imagine finding impurities in something as basic as a bottle of soda. Because of these laws, the financial penalty for the business isn't just a tiny slap on the wrist. They could easily be facing a compensation claim of 1 lakh rupees. That is a massive deterrent, specially designed to ensure your physical safety and give you some peace of mind. So, to navigate all of this, Consumer Protection acts as a really clear step-by-step roadmap. Step 1 is just overcoming our own ignorance by actually knowing our rights. Step 2 is getting organized, because when we unite, we hold incredible power. And Step 3 is the ultimate goal here, completely shutting down the widespread exploitation by shady businesses.
Section 4, the business perspective.
Now, to be totally fair here, it's really important to recognize that healthy consumer protection isn't just an anti-business thing. Actually, it's quite the opposite. Smart, enlightened businesses really want this framework to exist. Why? Because happy, satisfied customers equal long-term profits and repeat sales. Plus, businesses are using society's resources, right? So they have a moral and social responsibility to operate in the public's best interest. And practically speaking, playing fair is quite literally the best way for a business to keep the government from swooping in and ruining their public image.
Section 5, the 2019 Protection Act.
So what is the actual weapon that empowers us and keeps those companies in line? It's the Consumer Protection Act of 2019. Think of it like a giant legal hammer dropping down to protect our interests. It replaced the older 1986 Act so it could widen its scope and, crucially, make grievance redressals way faster and cheaper for consumers all across India. To truly use this act, though, we kind of need to understand the lingo. Let's start with the big one, consumer. Officially, this is you, whether you're browsing in a physical brick-and-mortar store or scrolling online through e-commerce sites. The only real condition is that you paid or promised to pay for something. The law does, however, specifically exclude people who are just buying things to resell them for a profit. Next up, we have the complainant. This is simply whoever steps up to blow the whistle on bad practices. It could be just you as a single consumer, a whole group of consumers, a voluntary association, or even government bodies officially putting an allegation in writing. And here is a great legal term for those awful knockoff products you unfortunately see all the time online: spurious goods. Basically, if a seller claims a product is the real deal and it's totally not, you're dealing with spurious goods. And yes, the 2019 Act absolutely has your back on that. Finally, the law makes a really helpful distinction between physical stuff and services. A defect means there's a physical fault, imperfection, or shortcoming in a product you bought. A deficiency, on the other hand, means there was an inadequacy in a service that was provided to you. You know, exactly like that empty ATM in Raipur we talked about. Section 6. Know your consumer rights. Okay, now that we know the rules of the game, let's look at the actual rights this 2019 Act grants you. The Act guarantees 6 distinct rights, but let's zero in on 2 of the absolute biggest ones. First is your right to safety. You have the total right to be protected against goods and services that are hazardous to your health or life. That is exactly why you should always insist on products with proper quality assurances, like an ISI mark on your electrical appliances. Second is your right to be informed. You have an absolute right to know exactly what you're spending your money on. The manufacturer has to give you complete details on the ingredients, the manufacturing date, the quantity, and the correct price right there on the label. So the legal framework is completely in place. That massive shift from favoring the seller to empowering the consumer has already happened. The law has officially handed you the power of a king in the market. But here's the thing about kings. They have to actively rule. It's on you to be aware, to check those labels, and to actually complain when things aren't right. So the final question I want to leave you with today is this. The next time you're handed a defective product or a deficient service, are you going to just walk away, or are you ready to assert yourself and demand the fair deal you deserve?